try this. Pretend this is your trunk. And make up some kind of song like, you can tell at once we are elephants. We are elephants, big and strong. From the backs and fronts, we are elephants. We are elephants all day long. I was just thinking something. Could even use a sweater or a towel or something like that. Put around here. To be a giraffe. Yeah. You know, I was thinking, as we were talking about just being the giraffe, there was a time when I wished for something. Yeah, I wanted to be exactly like all my friends. And there were times when I was sad that I couldn't be just like them. Yeah. And I remember making up a song that was very much like what Josephine sang. And I used to sing, yes, I'm sad, but you see, it's because I want to be like the others. The others. I'm not wishing for the moon. I just hope that I'll soon be like the others. The others. For a year and a day without missing. Every day like the day just before. If my dreams won't come true, tell me, what can I do but just wish again one day more? And I wished and I wished. I didn't have to be like all the others. No, I found out I was okay. Okay, just the way I was. And what a good feeling that was when I came to understand that. There are so many ways to grow. There isn't a whole lot we can do about our outside kind of growing. Some of us grow tall and some of us grow short. Some of us have one color skin and some of us have another. That's all outside stuff. But we all have insides too. And our insides have a different way of growing. Our thoughts and our feelings grow. And there's a lot we can do about them. We can try to understand them and love them and help them to grow well and turn out to be glad we're the way we are and glad our friends are the way they are. And we can always try to remember that we're much more than one thing. We're much more than our arms or our legs or our eyes or our skin or our hair. We're even more than our thoughts. We are. When you put us all together, we're a beautiful, marvelous, spirited, lovely, wonderful, one of a kind. Some can do some things, some can do others. X the owl couldn't whistle, but he could fly. I can't whistle, but I can clean up a room. What are some of the things that you can do? Did you ever think of the many things that you've learned to do since you were a tiny baby? you see a tiny baby, do you ever think, I was like that baby one time, and now I'm not a baby anymore. I'm really growing a lot. There are so many ways of showing that you're growing. You used to creep and crawl real well, but then you learned to walk real well. There was a time you'd coo and cry, but then you learned to talk and lie. You almost always try. You almost always do your best. I like the way you're growing up. It's fun, that's all. You're growing, you're growing, you're growing in and out. You're growing, you're growing, you're growing all about. Your friends are getting better now. They're better every day somehow. You used to stay at home to play, but now you even play away. You do important things now. You're friends and you do big things now. I like the way you're growing up. It's fun, that's all. Someday you'll be a grown-up too, and have some children grow up too. Then you can love them in and out, and tell them stories all about the times when you were their size, the times when you found great surprise in growing up, and they will sing, it's fun, that's all. You're growing, you're growing, you're growing in and out. You're growing, you're growing, you're growing all about. It's true. And there are people who are really proud of the way you're growing and learning. Growing and learning about yourself and your world. It always gives me a good feeling when I see people growing and learning wonderful things. It's such a good feeling.
Let's join in.
To know you're alive. Such a happy feeling. You're growing inside and you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy today. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is through, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. Agape. Be back next time.
Goodbye, Mr. Rogers. I hope you enjoyed having him give us our children's message this morning, as he speaks to the child in each one of us. We're still growing. We're all of us growing. Big kids, little kids, grown-ups. All ages, we're still growing, especially inside with our thoughts and our feelings. So I hope that you enjoyed the message from Mr. Rogers, and you'll remember what a nice guy he is, and you can still find him on reruns. Our scripture reading this morning is from chapter 18 of the book of Luke, verses 15 to 17. And the people brought unto Jesus also infants and children, that he would touch them. But when his disciples saw it, they rebuked them. But Jesus called them unto him, and said, Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child shall in no wise enter therein. May the Lord bless the reading, the hearing, the understanding, and the living of his holy word. We're called to receive the kingdom of heaven as a child. When we think of the qualities of children, their curiosity, their wonder, their sense of being in the present moment, these are all qualities of finding the kingdom of heaven right here and now. So when I was thinking about how we remember childhood, of course I first thought of Mr. Rogers. He was the one who got me through raising 3 children. He came on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they were crazy wild and a little bit hungry and a little bit cranky. And he's so soft-spoken and gentle in his speech and honors children. And it's such a wonderful thing to listen to him again. In remembering childhood, we remember all manner of things, some good, some not so good. And what I wanted to focus on is the joys of childhood, because so often the things we remember are the hurts. We remember the problems. We remember the things that didn't go so well. And I was inspired in this by my chiropractor, who made a comment to me. I was having some trouble with some bursitis, and it's in my right hip. And he said, well, I want you to just think when you're walking, I want you to focus on how good your left hip feels. Focus on the good hip. Because if you focus on the bad hip, you'll start to limp, and then that'll knock the right hip out, the other hip out. And it was an interesting notion that we need to find balance. We need to not just focus on one side. Now, some people might always focus on the positive and not notice the negative, but more often than not, we focus on the negative. And we miss the positive. We miss the parts that are working well because we're focused on the ones that don't. And that balance, I mean, think about walking, it's a balance. You know, the hip that works not so well, the hip that works well. Well, let's just focus on keeping the balance between the two. As Mr. Rogers reminded us, we are more than our physical body, we're more than our thoughts. We are that observer behind the thoughts and the feelings. We are the soul, the essence, the part of us that knows that God is with us. As he said, when he wished and wished he could be like the others, but then he finally realized it was okay to be who he was, and what a relief that is, to come to that balance of, well, I want this, but it's not happening, but this is who I am. And he started to walk in his own shoes. Throughout our school years and our growing up, we had many ideas and feelings that have grown and changed. I'm sure some of us can remember some of the things that we used to think that we realize now, that's not quite right. For myself, I saw the movie Mary Poppins when it first came out. I thought grown-ups broke out into song when they were happy or when something happened. I just thought, well, why aren't my parents doing that? All the other grown-ups in the movie were doing it. So I just thought grown-ups always would sing when they were happy. They would burst out into song. And I know my older daughter, Sage, when she was first learning about God and you know who God is, when she first spotted him, she told us right away. It was the Burger King. There he is, there's God. She was sure the Burger King was God. Well, these are the kind of misinterpretations that we have as we're growing. And we make these mistakes and then we have them corrected for us by experience or by others. And if in the best of worlds, we have good modelings of growing and changing from our parents, from our teachers, from people in the community, from friends of the family. And we learn that it's okay to be who we are, just as Mr. Rogers shared with us, that who we are is, it's like we are the sum total of all we've thought up till now. Our physical condition is a sum total of all the movements we've made up till now. And so we need to remember that we are who we are because of where we came from and what we've learned through that. Not to say there aren't choices to be made. There are always new choices that can be made. And I actually, as a child, remember making a choice about behavior because my sister, who was younger, was always going to my mother with a problem. You know, I had this problem. This person doesn't like me at school, or the teacher was mean, or I can't remember even what she was upset about, but she was upset a lot. She was very emotional. And I remember making a decision as a very young child that I didn't want to get attention that way. I wanted to get attention by doing good things and not complaining about things. So I found that doesn't always work. But it's a decision about who I wanted to be that I sort of decided because I could see how other people were doing things. And that's sometimes how we decide things for ourselves, is by not what we clearly know what we want, but we know what we don't want. It's much easier to see that sometimes. So whether we're growing up in school, in our thinking, in our intellect, or whether we're growing in our ability to be part of a community, like in a sports team or a drama club, we might be learning how to fit in to different kinds of groups. When he talked about others, there are many others that we can group together with, and it is our human nature to want to be in community. So as children, we might have sought out a certain group of kids on the playground, or we might have sought out a certain sports team to participate in because we like being in groups. And very often, as children can be mean, we find ourselves being excluded from groups. And I'm sure many of us have had that experience. When I first moved to a new school when I was in 6th grade, my mother had made me a dress that, well, I thought the style was nice, but one of my first days out on the playground at recess, a bunch of boys came up, "What did you wear your nightgown to school?" And they teased me mercilessly. And I ended up in the nurse's room because I was upset and they took me out. But there was another kid in the nurse's room who didn't feel very well, and we became friends. So you never know where, if you're excluded from one thing, you might find yourself included in something else. And I know that we could all tell stories of the strange ways we've met people, because it just happens in unusual ways. So the ways in which we find ourselves included help us to grow, because we are with people, we share who we are, we're not other, we're in. But we also learn a lot from when we're excluded from something. I learned very early on that I did not like bullies. And I remember taking that into my own parenting and making sure my children knew that bullying was not acceptable, because I had felt it, and I knew what that felt like, and it didn't feel good. So part of looking at childhood is looking at the things that went well, like I found a friend in the nurse's station, but the things that didn't go well, which sometimes we don't like to remember, but they helped form us. As I said, it helped me to realize how much bullying hurt when I had been bullied. So let's think for a minute about some of the sports or drama club or band, or the things that you were part of. If there was something that you were part of at school, even if you were part of the group of people who didn't fit into the group, because I found myself in that group when I was in high school. And let's just think about for a minute the things that were helpful about that. It's helpful to be accepted. It's helpful to be known. Maybe be appreciated for your skill. But also it can be, like Mr. Rogers, wishing to be just like the others. And if we're in a group trying to be just like somebody else, and we're not being our own self, that can be a strain, to try to keep up a facade of being like, I can fit in, I can fit, but you don't really quite know that you can be yourself. This is one of the reasons that I think a church is so important for people, especially young people, because we allow them to be themselves. We don't tell them they can't be who they are. We delight in who they are. We show them appreciation. So I'll just ask you to close your eyes for a minute. Think back on a group experience from your childhood. Think about the welcome and the inclusion, or the exclusion, and the finding something else, and finding strength in who you are. And amazingly, overlay on that experience, the Lord knows you and is guiding you where you need to be. You might like to share an experience from their young life of being included, or we'll just let you ponder that. One one thing I would share from my own upbringing is that, as I mentioned, I moved when I was in 6th grade. I'd had a best friend up till then, and about a week before we were moving, I said, I'm really going to miss you. And she said, it's okay, I have my new best friend all picked out. And okay, that was over. It was over kind of fast. But I feel like, for me, that was a real lesson in don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have more than one friend, just in case it doesn't work out. Because that one was that was a tough ending. As a child, you are learning through every emotional experience you go through. You're learning whether you like it or you don't like it, if it's pleasant or unpleasant. Some activities that we participate in can help us to learn wonderful skills like cooperation and service and that can-do attitude that little children sometimes have even beyond their abilities. They have the spirit that says, I can do this. And I want to give you an example of that. When I first moved to this new neighborhood when I was 12, I did finally meet some kids in the neighborhood, and we said, let's put on a fair. And we made rides. You had to ride on a wagon, and then there was places to jump over things, and then there was refreshments and popcorn. And somebody's mother or some must have called the newspaper because they came to interview us. And they said, what? Because we were raising money for muscular dystrophy. And they said, well, what made you decide to have this little neighborhood fair and raise money for muscular dystrophy? Well, the quote that made it to the paper was, we couldn't spell multiple sclerosis. But it was a very important experience in cooperation, learning to do things together, deciding to do something for others. And that's one of the things that's brought up so often is when we're struggling, when we're having the not fitting in kind of feeling, if we can do something for someone else, it brings us out of that concern for ourselves and helps us to help others. And that makes us feel good. That brings that love that we're sharing with others comes back to us. So we live through the positive experiences, the joys, I don't know if you noticed on the website, the picture for the service today is a beach, because that's my favorite place is beaches. And the joys of childhood are wonderful little glimpses of things that were just the right thing at the right time that felt good. And I want to step on those. I want to remember those. Because on the other hand, there's my best friend telling me she doesn't need me anymore, and there's being teased in the playground, and all the things that are happening, that happened to us, that are still in us. We need to find the balance between learning from them, forgiving them if possible, and then focusing on and recreating some of the joy from childhood. Some of the joys of things that you laughed at, things that just struck your fancy, and beautiful sights and sounds, trips you might have taken. When we are tempted to limp on that one bad leg of all the experiences that hurt, get the good leg going. Remember some of the things that were really enjoyable, the people that you really enjoyed being with. Because when you remember and acknowledge both the joys and the struggles of childhood, you begin to integrate them more into your consciousness of, this is who I am, this is what I have grown from and through. And in many times it's with others, when we've been part of a community, and other times it's just, I am learning this on my own, and I can do it. I can move ahead, and I can be who I am. Because we are loved by God just the way we are. And as hard as it might be to accept that some of the things in childhood were things that helped us to become who we are today, when they didn't feel like they were helpful at all, we wouldn't be who we are today without those experiences. We need both negative and positive responses to the world to decide what we want and what we don't want. Because we as adults get to make choices about how we're going to live in life. And as Mr. Rogers said, then we grow up and we have children and we tell them what it was like when we were little. And we get to share some of our experience to help them feel understood. One of the greatest things in childhood is to have someone you can talk to. Somebody who will just listen. And I found that in my grandmother. I'm sure others of you have found that in different people in your life. But when you come to adulthood, if you can remember how it felt to just have that trusting relationship and know that that's what God is offering each of us, offering that inclusion, that we are within this community of children of God, which means not only is God listening to each of us, but we listen to one another. We become part of each other's lives by hearing each other's stories, sharing in the joys and sharing in the struggles. The paradox of God is that God loves us just the way we are and inspires us to change.